Good morning from the Cloud Stack Services team. I'm Tasha. I'm going to be your trainer today, and we're just going to walk through some of the basics on the Salesforce platform surrounding Salesforce NPSP dashboards. Now, a lot of this this was meant to be a very beginner training. Some of you may know some of this information. Hopefully, I can bring something new to the table as well. We are going to cover Salesforce reporting as part of this because they're so closely intertwined. And I think, my hope is that this session will provide those with no background with lots of things to consider. And for those of you who maybe have more Salesforce experience, you'll still be able to just kind of take some considerations and some of those core reporting and dashboard values back to the rest of your team as well. Okay, so just to get started today, I have a little agenda here. So we're, just as a housekeeping item, I would ask everybody to please, if you can, open your Salesforce home screen and follow along. I do have the chat and question functionality up and running on GoToWebinar, so feel free to connect with me during this training if you would like, so that we can, just talk back and forth. If there's questions, throw them in the chat, and I'll try to get to questions while I'm in the middle of the training as well. So we're going to start it off with talking a little bit about Salesforce reporting and why our team would suggest you use it, and just how to do some of those out of the box versus creating customized reports in Salesforce. It's just going to be a really just basic coverage. We're going to share, schedule, and subscribe, how you set up those features within a report if you're not already doing that, because those are really key. Salesforce dashboards, bit of background information on dashboards and KPIs that we would suggest particularly with the bend towards fundraising, since that's our specialty. And then last but not least, creating your own dashboards. What KPIs should you be using, how to place them into a dashboard, and just some of the component considerations that come along with using Salesforce dashboards. Okay, so jumping right into it, Salesforce reporting. I know there's a lot of background information on this, but one of the most recent articles from Nonprofit Hub found that, well, 90% of nonprofits are gathering data, less than half are actually using these to make informed decisions. So those seem like kind of wild and crazy numbers. Part of that may be for lots of nonprofits, even though they're gathering data within Excel documents, it's very, very difficult to analyze that data. And I would say, as part of the CloudStack team, one of the biggest considerations for folks as they move to the Salesforce platform is really making the most of their data and really getting that opportunity to be thoughtful and really look at that return on investment of a particular fundraising campaign and go, oh, well, this one was great and it made us a ton of money, but this one did not. And being able to look more closely at all of those fundraising KPIs on the regular. So obviously Salesforce reporting allows us to get a really fulsome look at our data. So 5 tips that just kind of pieces I thought of value for using Salesforce for these analytics and making informed decisions, and this ties right into reporting and dashboards, is what are those critical questions that your organization needs to answer routinely? Those are those KPIs, discussing as a team those critical pieces, and these may be very different for someone who's a fundraiser versus someone who's doing program management versus what the ED wants to track. You can run many, many, many different types of dashboards, and they can be private to yourself or public to a team. You may have just a sales and marketing dashboard, or in this case, that's usually how for-profits use Salesforce with that sales and marketing potentially versus services. And maybe they run a call center and they want to track those different things. So making different dashboards and critical questions may be different according to the team that's using the dashboard. Decide who needs the information. We can use permission settings and roles even to tie into who sees what reports and dashboards. Determining the frequency. So if you're subscribed to dashboards, how frequently are you going to send that subscription dashboard off to somebody? But also, like, how frequently do we need to update it? Salesforce is definitely smart enough to know when last fiscal quarter was. So that's great. But maybe in 2023, you want to put a whole new set of KPIs into your dashboard, or make some switches and go, should we be looking at this through a slightly different filter? So that's of real value in understanding your reports and dashboards. Be really picky about what's in your dashboard. Dashboards can be huge. You can look at a million KPIs, but maybe you really only have 6 or 7 critical ones, and those should be the main focus. But I mean, the sky's the limit, but you may want to keep your visuals quite clean in terms of what you're looking at. And I think most critically, and from a nonprofit tech consultant point of view, involving your end users in data analysis. I can't say enough about how the nonprofits that we are seeing succeed quickly on the Salesforce platform really have their beginner, sorry, not beginner, but their entry level all the way up to upper management involved in the process of using Salesforce. When everybody is on board, and I know that's impossible, not everybody is, of course, going to be on board with a switch to a new CRM, or even the current CRM you're in. There's always going to be someone who doesn't love it. That's okay, but I do think there is huge value in having that feedback loop of the people who actually are the ones potentially gathering the data in on the regular, and actually putting the data into the CRM or doing the on the ground fundraising. They are very valuable in keeping, staff being able to see that return on investment of a particular campaign, because they're sharing a fundraising dashboard, and so they get to see in real time all that work they're putting in succeed for the nonprofit as a whole. So there's that. And then Salesforce Dashboards, what's really great is that there's so much control over how the different reports are going to be displayed and how you want to look at them. You can change it very quickly. It's very dynamic, and so you'll have a real-time look at your data, but in a way that's a lot more manageable and palatable than having it spit out necessarily as a table style report. Okay, so going to move in a little bit, and I think what I'm going to do is switch back and forth between the demo org and my slides. So sorry, it's going to be a little bit of a mix of both, but first and foremost, just a few housekeeping items. So first of all, if you, for some reason, don't see dashboards here, I sent an email about this the other day. If you do not see dashboards here in your navigation bar, please go to the little pencil in the corner, and let's say I removed this from here just for argument's sake. So now dashboards has disappeared. This little pencil mark, we're going to add more items. You're going to go to all. And now when I type in, I'll just type in dashboards. We'll see it here. Click plus, add new item to the navigation bar, save. So now it's available there for me, although it's very small. So I'm going to move it back up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Okay, so anyways, but we can now see it in my navigation bar. I have too many items. The other option, of course, if you do not have that dashboard button, is you can go to the app launcher and you'll find it under items. So you can navigate to dashboards there for today if this is not an item in your navigation bar. And of course, we're going to do the same thing. Reports is where we're going to start off. So if for some reason you don't see reports, you just use a little pencil mark to add it, or you can go to the app launcher and find it there. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. So within the reports section, we have a lot of different options. So you can see it's going to navigate first to those most recent reports, but we can find private reports, public reports, all reports, different folders that you can subdivide reports in, and maybe you have a bunch of favorite reports. So just general navigation. And we're not going to start from scratch making any new reports here. We're just going to jump into reporting. So and that's just kind of what I went in here. So individual names of reports, different features that you can do using the drop down arrow. You can edit, run, export, delete, and you can move your folders around. So There's also I would highly recommend the use of global searches. So if you had different reports, you can just search them through that global search function in Salesforce as well. So it's just a little bit of terminology. So standard NPSP reports, I've just put together a really quick blurb on how to make a bunch of reports, but Salesforce is incredible. It comes with 60 out of the box fundraising reports. So if you haven't found them yet, I'm just going to show you where to find them. So when you go to all folders, and if for some reason you don't see this, please throw your hand up and let me know. You're going to go to, you can see right here, NPSP constituent. There's dashboards that you can find here as well, which is great. There are some unique fundraising manager reports that you can find here as well in folders. And under NPSP fundraising reports. So there are a whole bunch of different reports available to you here that you can go in and play around with. Obviously this is a great report last year, but unfortunately not this year, donors. So if I click on that, just going to jump in quickly and I can already see here's my list. And maybe this is, the equivalent to your fundraising short list to go, well, these people donated to us last year, but it's now end of September and they haven't donated this year. So I better start some strategic reach out with those individuals. So that's one of those cool pieces with reports. Of course, there's also filtering and changing up these reports. So when I'm deciding to make a change to a report because maybe I want to, add a few more filters in, I'm going to hit the edit button. So I'm sure much of this is old news, but if you haven't gone through and played around with reports, it's really fun. So we can see the filters that are already on here that are creating this last year, but unfortunately not this year. They have greater than $0 in gifts last year, but total gifts this year equals $0. So I would always encourage individuals to have some fun and play around with reporting. You're not going to massively break something. Usually you can go backwards and fix things after the fact. Or what you can do is if you're really, really worried about breaking something, click Save As, and here's a copy. So, we'll just call it copy. That's fine. And I'm going to save it. And now I have a great unique report of my copy of this account. And now when I decide to make some extra filters and make some changes, okay, so I really only want to, I don't know, when do I want to create them by date? Or let me see if I can find something fun that would be a little bit more interesting. So I only want to see accounts where the um, first giving date is greater than July 6th, let's say. So actually no one fits that criteria. So and now probably everyone's going to show up again. So anyway, you can do a little bit more variations. And now this report, maybe I want to call it, I can change the name, right? So account Liebunt prior to July 6th. So anyways, now I can save that. I've changed the name up. So you haven't ruined you haven't ruined anything, but you've had the chance to play around and create a new report. So that's just a little bit on reporting and doing those filtering options. So I'll make sure to send the slide around to people after the fact. Of course, you can also do some pretty awesome customizations. So that was what I just kind of showed there is I took a report, I cloned it, I made a copy of it, and by doing a save as and creating a new name, I can make something brand new, right? I'm going to take a general report and make some new decisions on that report. So one cool report I had made that was really only a slight shift. Let me see, I think platinum donors. So we're going to go in and take a look at this one. So platinum donors, and when we take just a little drill into this particular list, we're going to see that I've decided that our platinum donors for 2022, the biggest decision and how that's been decided is based on the total number of gifts that they've given. So anybody that's given more than $0 so far this year, but they've also given more than 4 gifts. So this could be your recurring donors, but this also could be one-time gifts. These could be people who have slowly, um, you know, given multiple times over the year. So anybody who falls within that category, we're calling them platinum donors 2022. And it's just a little nuance. It's a very small change actually comparatively to when I remove this option, but it gives me a short list of all those people who fall within a specific category that I care about. So I'm just going to click save on that again. So it is really, really useful to create your own reports because maybe your team is tracking something that's quite unique. And so the reporting functionality in Salesforce is going to help you answer those burning questions you have that will really support and elevate your fundraising. So you've created this cool report called Platinum Donors 2022, but you want to share it, or you want only your ED to see it, or you have different requirements. So I've put together a little list on how to do that, and some of the functionality is and is not, unfortunately, in my is not in my demo org, but we're going to go backwards. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to find there's my platinum donors. It's currently in private reports. So that's a big problem. That's not going to work because by having it in private reports, no one else is going to be able to see it. So I'm going to go back to edit and I'm going to go to properties. So under this save, there's a little arrow. I'm going to go to properties. Right now, this is the name of the report and it's under private reports. But instead, I want to make sure this is a public report. Or maybe I want to create an entirely new folder. I mean, there's no rules here about how you want to get this set up, but I'm going to move this over to public reports. And now anyone within my organization is going to be able to see this report. For those of you who are Chatter users and actually have Chatter also set up, there's often a little, you're going to see a little box here at the side with a little um, just little talking symbols. You can also chatter that report right directly from there by using that at functionality with your teammate's name, and it would just share the report naturally that way. So that's definitely an option. The other option is going to be, I'm going to save this, just click run, and now you can also decide to just highlight this URL link and I can then include it in any email and just send it along to my teammate. And now because it's in a public file, they'll be able to access it. You know, there's lots of different files within reports. Sorry, I'm just going to open it up this way. So lots of different files within reports. So you may have created extra folders. So you could have a folder that's called fundraising team. So only people who have access to the fundraising team folder, you know, maybe I'm going to call this fundraising team and save it. And I can add different teammates into this folder so that only certain people are able to see this. So I would share it, I would search for different users, and I would go, okay, this person, and this person are able to view, edit, manage what's the different permission levels I want them to have. So really great functionality within Salesforce. Another thing that you can do now that this report is up and running is we can subscribe. So when I hit that subscribe button, sorry, maybe I did that too fast. There's a nice little arrow to the right here. When I click subscribe, this allows me to set up, maybe I want to see this um, specifically on the last day of every month with a specific time. You can decide to attach a CSV file. You know, I want to actually get a CSV whenever this comes in. Edit recipients, who gets this, right? You could have many different team members. We could base it on roles, or an entire public group can have access to this. So you get to decide who the recipients are. And you can even add conditions to this report. So maybe you want when the sum total of gifts is above a certain amount, that's when this triggers this report each month. Um, you know, I think it's going to be using this add conditions to this report can be a little tricky, but if there's something that your team really wants that's very specific with different rules and regulations, feel free to either get in touch with me and I can send more information about this subscription option, or our team is of course happy to help you set up some of these subscriptions to reports. Um, exporting this document. We can add it to a dashboard right from here, but we'll just leave that for now because I'm going to show you how to go in and start working on some of that as well. So that kind of takes care of sharing a report. This is also the subscribe button with scheduling a report. So just got a couple notes there on how to set up those subscriptions. And now we're going to jump into, now that we've talked about reporting a little bit, we're going to jump into a discussion of dashboards. So now that you've got all these great fun reports with all your specific metrics and the way that your team looks at fundraising outlined, we're going to talk about dashboards. So dashboards take those reports and just take them to the next level, because instead of looking at one report at a time, you're able to look at multiple reports all on one visual and be able to kind of look at that intersectionality as well of, are we continuing to trend upwards with, donations this year? Or are we finding that there's this weird like loop and we're falling down in this particular quarter? And what does that mean? Oh, the ROI on this particular campaign is not looking great compared to the 3 other ones we're running. Maybe this is something to consider for next year. So that side-by-side look is pretty cool with Salesforce Dashboards and being able to really follow all your KPIs a little bit more closely. So yeah, some great examples. We can look at, donor engagement. We can look at, what staff are potentially involved, especially if you're using something like Salesforce case management or program management. Maybe you want to track which of your staff is been taking how many calls in the last month, and what's their average call time potentially if you do those kinds of tracking measures, or if you have an annual program or fundraising goal, how close are you getting to it? And it's just really nice and sometimes motivational to be able to see the box kind of ticking forward. So with dashboards, there are components to the dashboards. So there are individual dashboards, and then there's actually components within dashboards. So we're going to move over in a second, but we can kind of see from what I've outlined here that the navigation is very similar to the reports page. So it's nice. If you feel like you've kind of figured out reports, dashboards is probably going to come fairly naturally to you as well, which is awesome. Another piece with Salesforce dashboards that can be kind of confusing, and I don't really know that there's always like a right or a wrong chart to use, and it's going to be really unique. Maybe if you've recently moved over from Excel, you're going to be like, oh, well, this is the kind of chart I was already using. So it's great. This makes automatic sense because this was already how I was looking at this before. But you don't have to feel like you're married to any particular sort of chart or report or even table, because there's lots of changes you can make after the fact. So this little component type chart is supposed to be helpful in assisting you in figuring out what is the best way to look at some of these dashboard components and how to create great visuals for them. So I just put together a few resources off to the side here that are really great, but often, like, in our work with other nonprofit consultants, these were some of the biggest and most important fundraising KPIs that most of them were suggesting to track. So it ranges from as simple as total donors and donations this year, all the way up to some pretty complicated pieces of reporting math, like donor retention rate is quite complicated to create and is not a standard NPSP report. But most of these are just out of the box reports that have been created just by NPSP. So you can kind of take advantage of those, which is great. Some of these I made total new donors this fiscal quarter, slightly different. So you have to, there's a little bit of tweaking work to accomplish that. So if anybody has some interest, I can send along some recordings after the fact on how I put those together. But these are the kind of those questions at the beginning of the session that I mentioned. What are the critical items that your team is wanting to track? Because maybe they actually don't relate to these at all, or maybe some of your team is really looking at these, but for those people who are running events, they want to get actually way more into the nitty-gritty of actually looking directly at campaign ROIs, and their fundraising chart is going to look different than maybe the director of developments is going to. So I'm going to jump over into how to create a dashboard. So if you have yours open, that would be great. So I'm going to go into dashboards here. So this is where I had said, we have all dashboards that are available here currently. There are a couple ranging ones. NPSP has some standard dashboards that you can see here as well. And this is the one that I had made recently and I'm subscribed to. So just going to refresh this quick and see if there's been any changes. Probably not anything too drastic. But I'm tracking most of those KPIs that I had mentioned on the previous slide. So there are some pieces that obviously don't lend themselves well to being presented in any other way, but these are my contact some year, but unfortunately not this year donors. And these individuals, this is almost like a short list of people you may want to start reaching out to. What went on with John Smith? Do we have his email address? Maybe this is a great person for some targeted outreach. Or actually, Vivek Ram gave $1,000 last year. That's really quite a bit of money. Maybe we should really get in touch with him. So these are actually hilariously almost the exact same lists because we've actually only been using this demo org since January. So, but it was as simple. I just changed the name. Donors we were hoping to capture 2022. And so the system is going to be smart enough within Salesforce to know that if all of a sudden, Tasha's been out doing a lot of work, working hard to get in touch with Vivek Ram, and we have secured his donation. The donation has in fact come through. He will disappear from this list. So Salesforce is constantly going back and refreshing this data. So you're going to get the opportunity to see in real time this happening. So this list will get smaller as we, actually engage with these individuals. Something as simple as donations this year, retention rates, total number of donors, donations by type. So if you're a group where you're getting quite a bit of in-kind gifts or you're actually doing a lot of major gifts, maybe you're wanting to look at donations by type. That can be a really useful metric. Average donation amount. So, what's your goal donation amount? Maybe that's something you track, maybe not. Total new donors this fiscal quarter. Man, CloudStack team is not crushing this. And this gauge, I've decided to set up the range at which I feel that I would be happy with the number of donors, right? So new donors, the goal was, the mid-range goal was 33 to 67. And if it was anything above 67, we're in the green. So this is one of those fun pieces that you can change around within reporting. So there's just some of the metrics that I was playing around with, can edit at any time. So I'm going to just start a brand new dashboard. So we're going to start right from scratch. We're going to click new dashboard and I'm going to call it Tasha's Training Dashboard. You can add a description here if that matters to you. I'm going to make sure that this is NPSP dashboards. We're just going to make it completely public because I want everyone to be able to access it. So I want the whole team to be able to play with this. So it's going to look really simple and kind of boring. But these little boxes represent places that we can slowly build out what we want on our dashboard. So we're going to click plus for component, and this is actually going to bring us right back to all of the possible reports that are available. And so just trying to think some of the ones that have been good. Okay, so here, account donor retention. So that's a pretty cool one. That's something I want to keep track of. So I'm going to click it, select. Now I'm going to be brought to a page where I get to decide how do I want to represent this. So add component. How do I want to represent this? Do I want it as a horizontal bar chart? Would I like it as a gauge? And with the gauge, we get to make decisions about what the gauge segments ranges are. So, you know, if this is a total amount at this point. So let me think. Account donor retention. Anyways, this is where it's kind of fun. You get to play around and just make decisions about how you would like this represented. So maybe I'm going to say it like that. So you get to make some decisions. You can play around with what it looks like. Okay, that's cool. So now I've got account donor retention. What else do I want to see? Since we haven't been in this account that long, it's not going to work all that well. So let me see. Let me see. So obviously you can see there's so many options here to choose from. Um, so here's one if you were coming up to year end and you were someone who dealt with financials, that might be really useful. Opportunities this year to receipt. So these are all the outstanding ones currently. And actually, I want to tabulate that actually potentially as a list. Maybe that's going to be too crazy. Never mind. So nope, this doesn't look like something I actually want to include here. I'm going to go back to created by me. So total new donors this fiscal quarter. And maybe this one is one of those ones where, I'm really hoping to have these numbers. Okay, from 0 to 10's not making me particularly happy, but, yellow's going to be from 9 to 20. Cool. And this one's our total goal, we would be thrilled if we got 30 donors this year. So we can see how it's going to affect um, those numbers as we place them along there. So you have some options to play around with dark versus light boards. You can add subtitles to this. We can change the name and title. You can add links even if you want to within this. So anyway, and now I get to move this around the board as I'd like. So we're going to add as many components as you'd like. You can, like I said, it's worth thinking about the value. You can make these smaller and have different ones that are more prominent because you want them in the middle. Really, really up to you. So first we're going to click save on this. So now my dashboard is saved. So I could go at any time and get a look at this. We'll do that in a second. So if at some point I could go back, and this little properties button is going to allow me to put a description in or change the folder, or who do I want to view this as? Maybe I'm going to change around who can see what, how many grids I have, different color patterns, things like that are available here. So I'm going to click done. I'm going to click save. And so now I'm going to be able to see this when I come to the dashboard. I can subscribe to this dashboard. I can send it along to my colleagues so that they can take a look at it as well. And now when I go into dashboards, I have another available dashboard here. And it exists within the all dashboards. I'm not subscribed to it currently. It's within the folders. So Tasha's training dashboard is within all folders here as well. So it's pretty great. I can add it as a favorite if I wanted. I can move it around from folder to folder. So very, very similar to reporting and how we work within reports. So there is also NPSP out of the box dashboards that you can do the exact same work with. So when I go, like I said, NPSP, here's one of the NPSP dashboards. I can decide to change up. This one's all based on campaign ROI. So we haven't really been doing campaigns by set up this way. So unfortunately, it's not really putting much information in here. That's just not how our team has been set up. Um, So there's not really going to be, unfortunately, a way for much information to show here. But yeah, we could just play around and edit this particular dashboard as well. So yeah, anyways, so this is just kind of really basic overview of what's possible within these Salesforce dashboards. And you can see after spending a bit of time in it, how intertwined it is with reports and really they're one and the same. Dashboards is just a way to kind of look at many, many more reports at the same time. And we can at any time go in and change up the look and the feel of our dashboards and the visuals and decide what works for us or our team. And maybe you're someone who, really likes to see that percent sign. Maybe you really want to look at year over month growth. Really, the sky's the limit in the abilities of Salesforce to kind of um, measure and analyze that data that's coming in. So that's kind of the end of this presentation. I will be sending along a bunch of resources after the fact so that you can look through and get some ideas of what you may want to do and step by step how you'd like to change up your own reports or how to create more dashboards for yourself. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them, although I'm by no means a Salesforce reporting professional. But we have some awesome members of the team. And if there's a question I can't answer, I will pass it along to them and we will follow up with you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.